Thursday, April 4th, 2024. You're listening to a podcast called Reflections on Weather. I'm the podcaster Simcha Lefton. We now start the focus on Israel. Today, I wanted to focus more on Israel and just unbelievable accomplishments that this country has had over the past, over at least the past 70 years, but in a certain way, it goes a little bit beyond that, but especially the past 70 years. And yesterday, I saw a presentation by the Israel Meteorological Society. The presentation was made 2 years ago. It's on their YouTube channel. I saw a couple of other presentations and I wrote down what I learned, and I'm just going to read what I wrote. Yesterday I learned that Israel has a climate branch to its weather service. In addition, they make presentations to the public, which not only include several speakers who are experts in the field, but also include a question-answer session at the end. The video that I saw was from the year 2022. I learned that there are two different definitions given for climate change. One is by the IPCC and one is by the United Nations. The professional definition is that of the IPCC, and that's what the presenter chose to go by. I also learned that in the year 2011, a new science started. This science tries to connect extreme weather events to climate change, or at least figure out what impact climate change has had on the extreme event. And this I didn't write, but what they mentioned is that extreme events have always taken place regardless of the climate. But it's believed that climate change is making these extreme events more frequent. But there have always been extreme events. One of the more astonishing things I learned is that Israel has weather records that go back to the 1890s. These records could accurately inform the experts the impact that climate change is having in the country as a whole, but not isolated spots in Israel. Israel uses a different technique combined with temperature data to figure out the exact impact that climate change is having in isolated areas. And this technique sounds really complex. There's a word for it. The chances are the United States uses this technique as well. At times, there's a good chance that the United States does, but there's not as great of a need in the United States as Israel for many reasons. One of them has to do with the size. There's a great need for this due to how small the country is. Farmers need to know how to handle future weather in order to grow crops. This is in contrast to the United States, where such a need does not exist to my knowledge, or it's very minimal. Because we have such a large area to grow things, we don't need to know what exactly is happening at every single isolated spot. Israel uses aggressive adaptation to deal with climate change and could serve as a role model to the world in this area. Israel also uses the policy of using nature's natural resources to fight climate change. They started a program where they plan on planting 450 million trees by the year 2040. The tree planting is unique because of the location of where they are being planted. They're being planted along roads and other places where there usually are no trees. The goal of these trees is to both absorb greenhouse gases, which is what we call a carbon sink, but the other goal is to cool things off. Israel's presentation included an awareness that the rapidly increasing population, not just in Israel, but other places as well, but it's increasing much quicker in Israel. The rapidly increasing population also impacts the climate separate from greenhouse gases. They taught about how complex it is to make comparisons in temperatures over the decades. Nonetheless, they did it. And the chart the presenter used came from NASA, which did not show a significant rise until 2014. What should be said over here is that it kind of went up and down. And then from the chart they used, which it seemed like that chart was based upon the actual surface temperatures, was not based upon the satellite temperatures. The charts based on satellite temperatures have a different result, but that chart showed a steady temperature from the year 2005 to about 2014. It showed that there was 1930s to about 1950 was a warmer period of time. Then after that, we went into a cooler period. Then we went through a warmer period after that, and then things stayed the same. But since 2014, it's been rising. That's what that chart showed. Israel seemed to recognize that there's a possibility that the computer models for climate are not accurate regarding their climate forecasts for 2050. That's possible. Nonetheless, they advised to follow the science and take this seriously to the extent that their headlines included Yisrael Batel by 2050. It was, to me, that sounds very intense. It means nullified. It means the headline was very intense. The presenter explained how even to the world, the forecast for greenhouse gases is expected to reach a peak just before 2040 and then go down slightly after that. The presenter said, this is the opinion of the world, the basic conclusion was that record high temperatures have not changed over the past 100 years in Israel. And by the way, this is true for many, many countries. In fact, here in the United States, the highest temperature officially ever recorded was 134 degrees. That was set over 100 years ago. It's not true for all countries, but it's true for many. And in Israel, that's the case. The highest temperatures recorded it was a very long time ago. I think it said 1950, and it was about 130. It was taken in Celsius. However, the frequency of heat waves, along with their duration, is increasing. So you'll have like a lot of days with temperatures in the hundreds or 90s, many, many more days of temperatures in the 90s, let's say. This is not just true for Israel. This part is true really for everywhere. You'll have many more days with temperatures in the 90s, but regarding here in the Midwest, let's say, but extreme heat, those records were all set a long time ago. Not everywhere, but I think in the Midwest, the records for the 1930s in most places seem to still stand. But that's the case in Israel. They acknowledge that the average temperature is increasing. This is leading to more extreme events. However, in total, it is not impacting the country regarding rainfall. If there is a trend regarding rainfall, the trend is towards drought. Israel experienced drought from the mid-1920s to the mid-1930s, similar really to what we experienced here in the United States in the Midwest during the Dust Bowl years of the 1930s. They experienced a response from the 1991 volcano that happened in June in the form of a very wet winter. Here in the Midwest, we experienced a response in a very cool summer, the summer of 1992, just unusually cold. There were even snow flurries reported in Wisconsin in June. Israel invented technology that allows plants to grow in the desert with minimal water. Totally mind-boggling. In addition to the ingredients in the water that helps this happen, they have made a genetic change to the plant that further achieves this goal. In addition, they use special technology that informs them of the exact time a particular plant needs water based upon sensors. Israel has a surplus of water despite drought. A system was made during the severe drought of 1998 to 2002, which allows them to use Mediterranean seawater. They have also profited from this and have been able to help surrounding countries which are having water shortages. Israel is so determined to deal with climate change that they will continue working on projects with neighboring countries, even when at war with that country. And this is, in fact, what has happened in the past. It's just amazing how this climate change, which, by the way, nowadays might be called, the terminology may have changed to climate crisis, the people who are taking it seriously, it's actually bringing countries together. Israel tried cloud seeding in the late 2010s, 2018, 2019, but discontinued it due to its ineffectiveness. Just to mention a couple points regarding that, Israel was using cloud seeding to help there be more water. United Arab Emirates is using it to cool off the heat. Israel seems to have a more efficient way of getting water. So it could very well be for Israel, it was ineffective for what they were using it for. They've also used, they've tried, there's been other projects that it looked like it came from Israel. It was on the Israel Meteorological Society website. It's possible it was done in a different country using salt chemicals to get rid of fog, and it helped, but very minimally, and it's just not worth it. So United Arab Emirates, their program might be effective because they're using it to reduce heat, and there really is no other method to do that other than produce rain. Israel created a special water organization which deals with supplying the country with water. Israel is in one of the most drought-stricken countries in the world and is greatly impacted by climate change. In fact, it is one of the world, the northern parts of Africa, and especially the northeast part of Africa, which we call the Middle East. That's one of the areas of the world which is most highly impacted by climate change. I assume because of drought. Because even when they get rainfall, the rainfall in recent years has been very heavy, which doesn't do much for the drought because if it was light rain, the soil is able to absorb it. When it's very heavy, there's a lot of runoff. It produces floods while the drought continues. We actually have a similar situation here in the United States. Israel has 212 million more trees than it had 50 years ago. It is the only country in the world that has less desert now than it had 50 years ago. The one issue Israel had, there used to be a lot of streams there. And these streams were very good for absorbing all of the heavy rain. Whenever there's a heavy rain, the rain would drain into the streams, and the streams would take the water out to sea. Because of all the building, some of these streams were turned off. They were cemented over. And because of that, there has been an increase in floods. However, they have started a program, to my knowledge, to help eliminate this, to put things back to the way they were before. So Emir Hashem, that's what's going to happen. But what you see here, it was like an overwhelming impression, or an overwhelming, I never saw the words climate adaptation used, but this is exactly what we mean by climate adaptation, is just adapting to the climate, adapting to this new climate. They're growing things in a desert. You just see it's. I think they're tremendous role models for the world in this area, and these things don't impose any financial stress on any other country. A lot of countries need to burn the fossil fuel or whatever it is. So I thought that was something quite amazing. So in the same way we shared about the electric drones in United Arab Emirates, I thought I would just share this with you. I wish everybody a great day. And thanks for listening. You've been listening to a podcast called Reflections on Weather, which many times includes reflections on climate as well. This podcast could be listened to on almost all platforms where podcasts are found. Thank you for listening.